Welcome to our deep dive on why a seemingly simple long vacation can look like immigrant intent to border officers, especially under the Visa Waiver Program like ESTA. In this video, we will walk through how CBP evaluates travelers, the biggest red flags that trigger secondary inspection, and concrete steps to reduce your risk. Let's begin and set the stage for what CBP is actually trained to do. Here is today's roadmap. First, we'll frame how CBP thinks. Next, we'll cover the major red flags: missing ties, long stays near 90 days, insufficient funds, and visiting a resident romantic partner. Then, we'll provide a step-by-step playbook for surviving secondary inspection and show what evidence helps. We'll test your knowledge with quick quizzes and finally wrap with key takeaways. Now let's start with CBP's mindset. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Immigration decisions are highly fact-specific and can vary by officer, port of entry, and the totality of circumstances. If you have concerns about your situation, speak with a qualified immigration attorney. With that clarified, let's examine how CBP evaluates intent. Customs and Border Protection's primary role is filtration, deciding who should enter and who should be refused. Officers start from the principle that every visitor must intend to depart at the end of their authorized stay. They assess the totality of circumstances, not just one detail. Patterns matter. When multiple factors combine, like a near maximum stay, weak home ties, limited independent funds, and a romantic partner in the destination country, the perceived risk of immigrant intent rises sharply. With that framework in mind, let's break down the major red flags one by one. This flowchart illustrates the typical decision path. After arrival, the officer quickly checks if your stay length is near the 90-day limit. If yes, that raises initial concern. Next, they assess whether you have strong home ties, job, school, property, or immediate family obligations. Weak ties increase risk. They also check if you have sufficient independent funds, not relying on a host to sustain you. Visiting a resident romantic partner elevates scrutiny because of the possibility of marriage and adjustment of status. If answers raise doubts, you are sent to secondary inspection, where an officer requests proof and asks targeted questions. Based on the credibility and documentation you provide, they either admit you or refuse you. Now let's detail the first red flag: missing ties. The strongest predictor that you will leave is the presence of strong ties at home. These include a current job, ongoing education, property ownership or lease, and immediate family obligations such as a spouse or minor children. Quitting your job just before a long trip is particularly damaging because it removes a key economic anchor. To mitigate, show proof of your anchors: employment contracts, enrollment confirmations, property documents, and proof of family responsibilities. Additionally, plan commitments soon after your intended return date, such as interviews or start dates, to reinforce your intention to go back. Next, let's look at stay length and why the 80-day window is risky. Under the Visa Waiver Program, up to 90 days is allowed, but approaching that limit can appear like an attempt to reside rather than visit. Arriving with a thin or vague itinerary compounds the problem. If your plan is essentially to stay with a partner and not tour much, an officer may conclude you aim to integrate into local life. Repeated long trips with short gaps are even riskier because the pattern resembles de facto residence. To mitigate, diversify travel timing, avoid back-to-back maximum stays, and maintain a robust, documentable tourist itinerary. Now, let's examine finances and why independence matters. Insufficient funds for a long stay is a common reason for denial. For example, $2,000 spread across 80 days equates to roughly $25 per day, which is not viable in most destinations. Relying on a resident partner to cover rent and daily expenses undercuts your appearance of independence and suggests a semi-residential arrangement. Instead, demonstrate financial solvency through bank statements or savings, pre-booked accommodations, and evidence of paid attractions. This helps confirm that you can support yourself without working or depending on others. Next, let's discuss why visiting a resident romantic partner triggers heightened scrutiny. A visit to a resident romantic partner is the single greatest catalyst for deep scrutiny. Officers know that some people enter as tourists, marry, and seek to adjust status, which is not permitted under the Visa Waiver Program's purpose. Be honest when asked, but keep answers concise and precise. To offset risk, present evidence that your relationship will continue outside the host country, such as upcoming trips where your partner visits you, shared itineraries abroad, or scheduled plans at your home location. Now that you understand the red flags, let's build your secondary inspection playbook. If you are sent to secondary, keep answers short and directly responsive. Do not volunteer extra information. Always carry a confirmed return ticket. Some travelers even arrive with a shorter initial ticket and later move the date. Present evidence of home ties, employment offers, enrollment documentation, property papers, and family obligations. Demonstrate independent funds through recent statements, available credit, and confirmed bookings. Bring a detailed itinerary with dates, locations, and tourist activities. If currently unemployed, show a signed offer letter or interview confirmations scheduled for shortly after your return. With the playbook in hand, let's compare high-risk and lower-risk traveler profiles. On the left is a pattern of factors that amplify risk: a near maximum stay, recent job resignation, very limited funds covered by a partner, and a weak tourist plan centered on cohabiting with a resident partner. Repeated long trips with minimal gaps further mimic residences. On the right is a comparatively lower risk profile: a shorter visit, ongoing employment or a confirmed start date, evidence of savings and prepaid accommodations, a real multi-city itinerary, and obligations scheduled after returning home. Spacing out trips helps avoid the pattern of de facto residences. With these contrasts in mind, let's run some numbers to plan a realistic budget. This planner estimates a basic daily spend at 2 levels, excluding flights and visa fees. For a 30-day trip, you might need between $2,400 and $3,600. At 60 days, that rises to between $4,800 and $7,200. At 80 days, you could need between $6,400 and $9,600. And at 90 days, between $7,200 and $10,800. These figures illustrate why $2,000 for an 80-day stay appears unrealistic. Now let's test your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: which scenario most likely triggers secondary inspection or denial under the Visa Waiver Program? Option A: a 20-day trip with hotel bookings, $4,000 in savings, and a job letter. Option B: an 85-day stay, no job, $2,000 cash, staying with a resident partner. Option C: a 10-day tour with prepaid excursions and a return flight. Option D: a 30-day trip visiting 3 cities with confirmed accommodation. You may pause the video now to consider your answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section. The correct answer is the 85-day stay with no job, limited funds, and lodging with a resident partner. This combination stacks the primary risk factors associated with immigrant intent and is likely to result in secondary inspection or denial. Next, let's visualize what happens at the booth during inspection. This sequence diagram models the interaction timeline. At primary inspection, the officer checks your passport and quickly evaluates stay length, itinerary, funds, and ties. If risk indicators emerge, you are referred to secondary inspection. In secondary, the officer requests documents and asks targeted questions. At times, a supervisor may be consulted on close calls. Evidence like a confirmed return ticket and a signed job offer can tip the decision in your favor. The process ends with either admission or refusal or a withdrawal of application. Now, let's add a positive toolkit, proof that helps. Assemble a documentation toolkit. Bring a confirmed return ticket with a fixed date. If unemployed, provide a signed offer letter or interview confirmations scheduled shortly after your return. Include enrollment documents, property leases or deeds, and family obligation proof where applicable. Show recent bank statements, available credit, and prepaid accommodation receipts to establish financial independence. A clear tourist itinerary, including cities, dates, and specific bookings, shows authentic visitor intent. If visiting a partner, add evidence that they will visit you in your home country in the near future, reinforcing your plan to depart. Let's check your understanding with one more quiz. Question: which single document most strongly demonstrates intention to return if you are between jobs? Option A: a heartfelt letter about your travel dreams. Option B: screenshots of your partner's text messages. Option C: a signed employment offer with a start date after your return. Option D: a list of attractions you want to see. You may pause the video to think about it. We will discuss the answer in the next section. The correct answer is a signed employment offer with a start date after your return. Verifiable commitments that tie you to your home country carry far more weight than subjective statements or personal messages. Next, we will expand your mental model of strong ties using a mind map. This mind map organizes categories of strong home ties. Employment covers a current job, an offer letter, contracts, and employer confirmations. Education includes enrollment certifications, exam schedules, and thesis deadlines. Property encompasses ownership deeds, leases, and utility bills tying you to an address. Family includes a spouse, minor children, or caregiving duties for relatives. Community ties might include memberships and regular obligations. Financial ties include savings and investments. Each branch should list example documents you can pack to evidence that tie. Now, let's reinforce the key takeaways. The core points are: CBP's role is to filter for clear visitor intent. The risk spikes when multiple red flags combine, such as a near maximum stay, weak home ties, limited independent funds, and visiting a resident partner. Bring independent verifiable proof including funds, bookings, a fixed return ticket, and job, education, or property documents. In secondary inspection, be concise, truthful, and calm. Finally, schedule commitments immediately after your return date to demonstrate a compelling reason to go back. To conclude, let's summarize the journey of this video. To summarize, approach your trip planning by thinking like an officer. Would your documents convince a neutral observer that you will leave on time? Construct a tourism-forward itinerary and set a realistic budget that demonstrates financial independence. Pack evidence that anchors you to your home country immediately after your trip. If referred to secondary, execute the playbook calmly and precisely. Finally, let's wrap up with a friendly request and next steps. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe for more practical travel and immigration insights. Share your questions or real scenarios in the comments so we can help future viewers learn from them. Safe travels and see you in the next video.